Close your eyes for a moment. Just that. Don't try to empty your mind. Don't seek any special state. Just feel the weight of your body where you are now. Observe your breath entering and leaving without haste. Now tell me, what did you find in that silence? Peace? Or perhaps a restlessness that was dormant, waiting for the moment of silence to finally appear? This is the first great trap that millions of people face when they sit down to meditate. They imagine that silence will be a refuge, an oasis away from life's confusion. But what they often find is the opposite. They find a mind that won't be quiet, emotions that overflow, an anxiety that seemed controlled but in silence reveals itself as giant. And then comes the judgment. I don't know how to meditate. My mind is too agitated. This isn't for me. The truth, however, is deeper and also more liberating. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a cell biologist who dedicated decades to understanding how our beliefs shape our biology, warns us of a dangerous illusion. He says that most people live as if they were driving a car, but without knowing there's an invisible driver in the back seat. The invisible driver is the subconscious, with all its beliefs programmed in the first 7 years of life, and it's the one who truly decides the vehicle's destination. The conscious mind just thinks it's in control. When you sit to meditate without knowing this, something fascinating, and at the same time, disturbing happens. You may be seeking peace, but the invisible driver, your subconscious, carries memories of scarcity, of fear, of unworthiness, and silence, instead of erasing these memories, merely amplifies them. Because meditation doesn't create anything. It reveals. It exposes. It brings to the surface what was already there, vibrating silently in every cell of your body. That's why so many people write to me saying, I've meditated for years, but my life doesn't change. I feel peace during practice, but 5 minutes later I'm back to being the same anxious, irritated, frustrated person. This happens because meditation alone, without work on reprogramming deep beliefs, is like trying to fill a bucket with holes. The water of peace enters for a few minutes, but leaks out through the holes of limiting beliefs as soon as you open your eyes. Dr. Joe Dispenza, another great investigator of the relationship between mind and reality, invites us to understand meditation not as a passive state, but as an electromagnetic field that needs to be coherent. He teaches that the heart generates an electric field 60 times more powerful than the brain, and a magnetic field 5,000 times stronger. When you meditate, you're actually reorganizing this field. But if your emotions don't accompany your intentions, if inside you still vibrate with desperation while trying to feel peace, the field short circuits. The question that needs to be asked, and that might hurt a little, is this: why do you meditate? Is it to find God, to connect with the universe, to raise your frequency? Or is it to escape from pain you don't know how to face? Because there's an abysmal difference between meditation that transforms and meditation that numbs. And it's precisely about these differences, about the fatal mistakes that sabotage your practice without you noticing, that we're going to talk about now. Sit with me for another moment. Imagine you are someone who carries a difficult history. Losses, betrayals, illnesses, abandonment. These marks are engraved not only in your memory, but in every cell of your body, as Dr. Bruce Lipton demonstrated in his studies on epigenetics. The experiences you lived programmed your cells to survive in a state of alert, to expect the worst, to protect themselves. This isn't a character flaw, it's biology, it's survival. Now this same person sits down to meditate. They close their eyes with the genuine intention of finding peace, of connecting with something greater, of raising their vibration. But there's an invisible detail. They sit with the identity of someone who suffers. They carry into the silence the weight of all their pains, and they believe that silence will magically dissolve them. Only silence doesn't dissolve. Silence amplifies. What happens then is that the person spends 20-30 minutes in deep contact with their own pain. They feel anxiety in their chest, the lump in their throat, the emptiness in their stomach. And how do they interpret this? As confirmation that they are broken, that they can't meditate properly, that spirituality doesn't work for them. The victim mindset, which was already there before meditation, leaves the practice even stronger, because it gained more evidence that life hurts, that peace doesn't come, that something is wrong. Bruce Lipton explains this with a powerful metaphor. He says the subconscious is like a tape player that plays the same tape infinitely until someone consciously changes the tape. When you meditate with a victim mindset, you're just listening to the same tape more attentively. You're not changing the tape. The peace you seek can't enter while the sufferer identity occupies all the space. There's an even subtler error here. Many people believe that meditating is observing thoughts without judgment, and this is true. But observing them without judgment doesn't mean accepting them as absolute truth. You can observe a thought of lack without becoming the lack. You can observe a memory of abandonment without defining yourself by it. The difference lies in who you believe yourself to be while observing. If you sit to meditate believing you are someone small, fragile, at the mercy of life, your meditation will be a confirmation of that smallness. If you sit knowing you are infinite consciousness having a temporary human experience, your meditation will be a reminder of that greatness. The internal posture before closing your eyes defines everything. Dr. Joe Dispenza often says, you can't enter meditation carrying the same person you want to heal, because that person, with their limited beliefs, with their distorted vision, with their dysregulated emotions, will contaminate the entire field. You need, before closing your eyes, to pause and choose who you are in that moment. Not who life said you are, not who your memories insist you are, but who you choose to be. Think of a seed. An oak seed doesn't spend time complaining that it's still small, that the soil is hard, that water is scarce. It simply contains within itself the giant tree it already is in potential and grows toward light regardless of circumstances. You, when meditating, need to access this seed consciousness, not the consciousness of the fallen leaf, the broken branch, the exposed root. The consciousness of what you already are in essence, before any wound. If you meditate and come out feeling something is wrong, perhaps the error isn't in the meditation, perhaps it's in who you believe yourself to be while meditating. This is the first layer to be reviewed. There is a danger so subtle that few people perceive it, and it lives precisely in what most seek in meditation: peace. Peace is wonderful, desirable, necessary, but there is a fundamental difference between the peace that heals and the peace that numbs, between the peace that integrates and the peace that dissociates. And this difference can determine whether your spiritual practice is liberating you or imprisoning you in a more elegant way. Dr. Bruce Lipton, in his studies on the cellular environment, discovered that cells respond directly to the energetic field in which they are immersed. If the environment is toxic, the cell contracts, protects itself, enters survival mode. If the environment is safe, the cell expands, grows, regenerates. Meditation should create this internal environment of safety so your cells can relax and heal. But many people use meditation exactly the opposite. They use silence to escape an internal environment they consider unbearable. The person feels acute emotional pain, an anguish that seems endless, an anxiety that tightens the chest. Instead of sitting with that pain, welcoming it, asking what it came to teach, they use meditation to escape. They force themselves to think beautiful thoughts, visualize lights, repeat mantras, try to convince themselves everything is fine. And for a few minutes, it works. The pain seems distant, muffled, dormant. But when meditation ends, the pain returns, and returns stronger, because it was pushed away, not transformed. Neuroscience explains this mechanism clearly. When you avoid an emotion, your nervous system understands that emotion is a threat, and everything that is threatening, the brain stores with maximum priority. So the more you flee your pain using meditation as refuge, the more your brain learns that pain is dangerous, and the more it reinforces it. You create a vicious cycle where meditation, which should be a healing tool, becomes an instrument for perpetuating suffering. The difference between still water and living water illustrates this well. Still water seems calm on the surface, but underneath it accumulates dirt, creates slime, rots. Living water also has moments of calm, but it flows, renews itself, carries oxygen. Many meditations are like still water. They bring a false superficial tranquility while unprocessed emotions rot at the bottom. The meditation that heals is like living water. It allows emotions to come, be felt, and follow their natural course. Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks about the importance of feeling emotions in the body, not just in the mind. He explains that emotions are the body's language, and ignoring them in meditation is like ignoring someone screaming for help. When an emotion emerges during silence, it's not a mistake, it's an invitation. An invitation for you to finally look at what you've spent years avoiding. There's a story in ancient teachings about a disciple seeking enlightenment who spent hours in deep meditation. His master, however, noticed that he never truly laughed, never truly cried, never truly surrendered. One day the master approached and said, "You learned to float above the waters, but forgot that water also needs to be drunk." The disciple didn't understand. The master explained, "You use meditation not to feel. But life is feeling. Enlightenment isn't above emotion, it's within it." If you recognize yourself in this description, if you realize you use meditation to avoid facing certain pains, perhaps it's time to change your approach. In your next meditation, instead of seeking peace, seek presence. Instead of trying to silence pain, sit with it. Ask, "What have you come to show me?" What in me needs to be heard? You may discover that pain isn't your enemy. It's just a part of you asking for acceptance. There is a silent belief that many carry, even without ever having said it aloud. The belief that meditating is a cleaning process where impurities are gently removed, like dust being blown away. The person imagines that, over time, the mind will become increasingly calm, emotions more serene, thoughts more elevated. And when the opposite happens, when meditation brings to the surface angers that seemed overcome, fears they judged healed, hurts they believed forgiven, they think they are regressing. The truth, however, is exactly the opposite. Meditation doesn't hide. Meditation exposes. It's like a very bright light you turn on inside a dark room. Before the light, you could imagine the room was clean, tidy, in order. But when the light comes on, you see dust in the corners, cobwebs on the ceiling, objects out of place. The room didn't become dirtier because the light arrived. It was always like that. The light merely revealed what was already there. Dr. Bruce Lipton explains that the subconscious stores all unresolved emotional memories, and that these memories influence your choices, your behaviors, your reactions, even without you knowing. When you begin meditating, you're creating a space of silence where these memories can finally rise to the surface. Not to punish you, not to frighten you, but to be seen, welcomed, and reintegrated. The problem is that most people, upon seeing the dust, turn off the light. They cannot bear to see their own internal mess. They prefer to return to the comfortable darkness where at least they don't have to deal with anything. And this is one of the most fatal mistakes of meditation. Using practice to maintain an idealized image of oneself, a spiritual facade that hides untreated wounds. Neville Goddard, the great master of the law of assumption, taught that imagination is reality, but warned of a danger. You can imagine being an enlightened person while continuing to act like a wounded one, and the discrepancy between what you imagine and what you feel creates an internal tension that sabotages any manifestation. True meditation doesn't allow this discrepancy. It aligns what you imagine yourself to be with what you truly are, including your shadows. There comes a moment in meditation when you may encounter something frightening, an ancient anger, a paralyzing fear, a bottomless sadness. The temptation is to retreat, distract yourself, return to thinking about daily problems. But if you have the courage to remain, something extraordinary happens. Gradually, the emotion loses its strength. It reveals itself as a passing cloud in the sky of consciousness. It is not you. It just passed through you at some point and became trapped, waiting for permission to move on. Allowing meditation to expose your shadows is not a sign of spiritual failure. It's a sign of maturity. It's the courage to look at yourself without filters, without masks, without the trappings of performative spirituality. It's the beginning of true healing. Notice how you're sitting now. Is there tension in your shoulders? Is your jaw clenched? Is your breathing shallow or deep? If you can't answer these questions, perhaps you're making one of the most common and least perceived mistakes in meditation, meditating only with the mind, completely ignoring the body. There is a tendency, especially among spiritual people, to want to transcend the body. The body is seen as something inferior, a temporary prison, a vehicle to be overcome. The person wants to reach elevated states of consciousness, dive into emptiness, connect with the divine, and the body is left behind, forgotten, denied. But Dr. Bruce Lipton reminds us of something fundamental. Biology is the basis of consciousness. Your cells aren't just brute matter. They are living intelligence, pulsing memory, incarnate wisdom. The body is the visible unconscious. Each muscle tension carries an unresolved story. Each knot in the throat guards an unspoken word. Each tightness in the chest protects an uncried hurt. When you meditate ignoring the body, you're trying to heal the tree while ignoring the roots. You might get some temporary green leaves, but the rotten root will continue producing the same bitter fruits. Dr. Joe Dispenza emphasizes that meditation doesn't only happen in the brain, it happens in the entire body. He speaks about the importance of feeling the frequency of the new reality in every cell, not just visualizing it mentally, because visualization without emotion is like a movie you watch, but don't enter. The emotion felt in the body is what anchors transformation. There's a simple but profound exercise you can try. In your next meditation, instead of focusing on the mind or elevated thoughts, bring your attention to the body. Start with your feet, feeling contact with the ground. Move up slowly, noticing where there's tension, where there's discomfort, where there's numbness. Don't try to change anything, just observe. And while observing, ask, what do you hold here? What is this tension protecting? Often the answer will come not in words, but in a spontaneous release. A deep sigh, an involuntary stretch, an unexpected tear. The body speaks the language of sensation. If you don't learn to listen to it, meditation will continue to be a mental exercise, an elegant escape, but not a deep transformation. True healing happens when mind and body reconcile, when consciousness descends from the head and inhabits every cell, when you finally understand that you don't have a body, you are a body too. We've arrived perhaps at the most fatal mistake of all, the one that summarizes all the previous ones and explains why so many people meditate for decades without truly seeing their lives transform. The mistake of believing that meditation alone by itself is enough to change your reality. The mistake of ignoring that while your deep beliefs aren't reprogrammed, you'll continue vibrating at the same frequency, regardless of how many hours you spend in silence. Dr. Bruce Lipton's metaphor is perfect for this. Imagine you have a bucket and want to fill it with pure water. You spend hours pouring water, with dedication, with faith, with consistency. But the bucket never fills. You get frustrated, wonder what you're doing wrong, maybe even give up. Until one day you look at the bottom of the bucket and discover it has holes, many holes. And all the water you pour escapes through these holes before the bucket can retain anything. The holes are your limiting beliefs. They were programmed in your childhood, engraved in your subconscious, confirmed by repeated life experiences, and they function as filters that distort all the energy you try to bring into your life. You meditate, feel peace, raise your vibration temporarily, but your deep beliefs still say you don't deserve it, that the world is dangerous, that money is difficult, that love always ends in pain, and these beliefs, operating silently in the basement of your mind, puncture the bucket of your meditation. Dr. Joe Dispenza complements this view by explaining that meditation can create an altered state of consciousness, but it's what you do with that state that determines whether permanent transformation will occur. If you enter meditation, feel the elevated frequency, but upon opening your eyes return to thinking the same thoughts as always, feeling the same emotions as always, acting in the same ways as always, nothing changes. Because change isn't in the temporary state, but in the permanent installation of a new program. That's why it's so important that meditation be accompanied by conscious reprogramming work. Bruce Lipton suggests something simple but powerful. Use meditation to access a state of deep relaxation, where brain waves slow down and the subconscious becomes more receptive, and then, in that state, introduce new beliefs. Visualize yourself already being the person you wish to be. Feel in your body the emotions of that new reality. Repeat affirmations that contradict the old programming. Gradually the holes get closed, and the water begins to retain. The difference between a temporary state of elevation and a new frequency installed in the nervous system is the same difference between visiting a foreign country and moving there. Visiting brings new sensations, remarkable experiences, but you return home and everything continues the same. Moving requires that you learn the language, understand the culture, create roots, transform from the inside out. Meditation without reprogramming is a visit. Meditation with reprogramming is a migration of consciousness. Throughout this conversation, we've revealed 5 mistakes that may be sabotaging your practice without you realizing it. The mistake of meditating with a victim mindset, carrying into silence the identity of one who suffers. The mistake of confusing meditation with energetic escape, using silence to numb pains that need to be felt. The mistake of ignoring that meditation exposes your shadows instead of hiding them, and retreating from that exposure. The mistake of not feeling the body, trying to transcend what needs to be inhabited. And the most serious mistake of all, meditating without reprogramming beliefs, filling a bucket with holes and wondering why the water doesn't stay. Meditation is not a destination. It never was a destination. Meditation is an instrument, a tool, a means, and like every instrument, its value depends on how you use it. A hammer can build a house or destroy a wall. The difference isn't in the hammer, it's in the hands that wield it and the intention behind each strike. Bruce Lipton reminds us that true change happens when we alter the internal environment, when we replace beliefs of limitation with perceptions of possibility. And meditation, when well used, is the laboratory where this alchemy can happen, not as escape, but as encounter, not as denial, but as integration, not as spiritual performance, but as return home. Neville Goddard taught that the state of dormant consciousness is where the person believes themselves to be a victim of circumstances, where they react to life instead of creating it. Meditating is waking up to the fact that you are the operator of the dream, not the victim. But waking up doesn't mean ignoring the dream. It means dreaming consciously, choosing each image, each emotion, each belief that inhabits your inner world. What if meditation became for you not an escape from reality, but the doorway to a more authentic reality? What if silence wasn't an emptiness to be filled, but a presence to be inhabited? What if every time you closed your eyes, you were actually opening yourself to life in its fullest expression? Think about this in your next practice. Don't seek peace. Seek truth. Don't seek emptiness. Seek presence. Don't seek escape. Seek arrival, because you are already where you need to be. Meditation merely reveals this. With gratitude for you having been here until the end, may your silence from now on be an encounter. And may each encounter bring you closer to who you truly are.